Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD. I'm speaking to you from Seattle, Washington, where I have relocated from Austin, Texas. Many of you know it's been about 6 weeks, I think, since my last webinar, and that's because I've tried to organize a trip and get up here. I've been here now for a little over a week and a half or so, and I'm trying to find space to reopen my medical practice. So it's good to be back here with you tonight, everyone. For those of you that are new, the way these webinars work, you write them. I mean, you create them with your questions, and there's a chat box over here on the bottom side, on the right-hand side towards the bottom of the screen. You can write your question there. The only thing I ask about when you write the question is that as you're writing it, only hit the enter key when the whole question is complete. If you write that, if you hit the enter key before the whole question is done, all the words are down, it sends questions to me that are in multiple parts, and it makes it really hard for me to find from this side. The other thing, during the webinar tonight, I will be reading your questions out loud, actually. But those of you that are here in the live version of the webinar and not watching this as a recorded version will actually be able to see those questions on your screen. Okay, but again, the reason I'm reading them is in the recorded version of the webinar. It's not always easy to, or those questions do not show up actually. Okay, all right. And then finally, I am actually doing a recorded version of this webinar. And so tomorrow morning, somewhere around 9 to 9:30 a.m. Seattle time now, you'll get an email from me saying that the recording is ready. Okay. If you happen not to get that email, the way that you can find the recorded version, there's multiple places that I post it. One is you can find it towards the bottom of the homepage on my Lyme disease information site, which is Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD at treatlyme.net. The other place you can find it on that same website is there's a webinars page. And actually on the webinars page, it's actually bigger format, so it's easier to see there. Third place you can find it is at my supplement store, Marty Ross MD Supplements, on the homepage down towards the bottom. You scroll down, you'll see that I have the recorded version there. And then finally, actually two other places, you can find it on my YouTube channel. And then finally, you could find it on Facebook. And the Facebook is facebook.com/treatlyme. Okay, so I posted all these multiple places so that people can get the information. Okay, all right. And so I don't think I have any other information. Oh, one other thing. So this is the first of 3 webinars in a row. So I'll be doing one next week and the week after. Okay. So feel free to come back. Feel free to sign up for more of these as well too. All right. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let me go ahead and take the first question. All right. This is from Ruth. I'm feeling a little rusty here as it's been about 6 weeks. So bear with me here as I get used to the format and operating all of this in a different room here too. So let's see, this is from Ruth. Hi, Ruth. Let's see, I was diagnosed with Lyme 2 years ago. Currently, my most prominent symptom is daily mild headaches and neck pain. I found that pain meds such as Aleve do nothing for the pain. I'm wondering if you have an alternative you think would be helpful. Let me just think. I want to look back through this here for a minute. Okay. So, the problem with pain in Lyme is there's a number of ultimate causes, but one of the things that Lyme does is it triggers a group of inflammation chemicals, which are called cytokines. Okay. And cytokines give you inflammation. Those cytokines actually are good and bad. On the good side, they're made by white blood cells when they see germs, and they're made to turn on the immune system to fight that infection. Okay, so that's good. The trouble is in Lyme, and in mold toxicity illness, and in too many yeast in your intestines. These are conditions that can look like Lyme. The immune system sometimes overproduces cytokines, and when you get too many cytokines, it can give you most of your Lyme symptoms. So it can give you headaches, it can give you neck pain, it can give you fatigue, it can make it so you can't think. And most of what we call Lyme symptoms are really caused by too many cytokines, okay? So in terms of pain, there is pain in Lyme, often the Aleve and your ibuprofens and your naproxens, they're called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. They're designed more to deal with pain that comes about from elevation of a group of inflammation chemicals, which are prostaglandin based. They're not cytokine based. Okay, a different group of inflammation chemicals. Infection-based inflammation is cytokines, and that's what leads to the pain. So we need to use something different, okay? Now, in prescription medicine, we don't really have good anti-cytokine medications. There are some, they're being targeted more towards other illnesses, but there isn't a general anti-cytokine medication that's good. And so we have to look at the world of herbal medicine. And in herbal medicine, what seems to work well, there's a variety of things, but my favorite is to work with something called curcumin. Curcumin is a derivative or a component of the East Indian herb turmeric, the seasoning that's used in Indian food that kind of gives it that orange color is turmeric. And the major component of that is curcumin. Okay. So one thing where I would start with my patients in my practice, and when I get back into practice again, I do with my patients, is I like them to start when these kind of pain situations is to start with 500 milligrams 3 times a day. My preference is to use a liposomal variety. That means it's microscopically wrapped in fat. And there's some science behind the idea that microscopically wrapping your curcumin in fat increases absorption. All right. Because in general, turmeric and its components are just not that well absorbed. In other words, you can't dump enough seasoning on your food to be able to get enough benefit out of that curcumin. Okay. So you want to do a liposomal variety. And the product that I use with my patients quite effectively is a product made by Thorne called Mariva 500. And I do carry that. If you're wondering where to get it, most of the things I recommend tonight you can find at my supplement store, which is Marty Ross MD supplements at treatlyme.com. I'll eventually show you the store here in a minute. Okay. Now, another thing you could do is to work with a group of herbs that actually affect cytokines through different angles. Okay. And so you could also, instead of just using curcumin alone, you could work with a combination product that has various herbs in it that are shown through different mechanisms to lower cytokines. And so those would be things like black tea extract, resveratrol, curcumin, like I just described. Those can be found in a combination product, and there's a company named Research Nutritionals that actually makes a combination product to lower cytokines, and that is called Cytoquel. And with their product, I would do it as 1 pill 3 times a day as well too. But my preference is to start with the curcumin. I tend to find that it does quite an effective job just on its own. Okay. All right. Now, the other thing I would do that can be very helpful for headaches and even neck pain is magnesium. And that is for magnesium, headaches mostly often have a muscular component, the muscles that are around the head. And neck pain sometimes winds up being a muscular component to that too. And increasing magnesium can help release those muscles. All right. So you could do magnesium. Magnesium, you want to dose somewhere in the range of about 200 up to 600 milligrams at bedtime. Realize that when you start taking higher amounts of it, you might get into looser stools. Okay. Magnesium in the intestines attracts water, which then leads to loose stools. And so for that, I like a Thorne product called magnesium citramate that is made up of magnesium malic acid and magnesium citrate. Okay, it's got 2 salt forms of magnesium in it. Okay, but those would be 2 things that in my practice, what I do with patients when they get headaches and neck pain and they have Lyme, I actually work with magnesium, and I also start with the curcumin. That's where I would begin. Okay. All right. And if you're not having much improvement with that over about a 2 to 4 week period of time, it may be a time to look even into other medications, but I would have you start at those 2 places. All right. All right. Or those 2 things. Okay. Thanks for that question, Ruth. And I hope that gives you some insight. Okay. You may want to talk about these ideas with your healthcare provider as well too. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Trevor. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thank you for your continued efforts in helping us all get better. And I'm so thrilled you're able to get your practice back. Me too. But it's not back yet fully. I mean, I'm actually here trying to get it going, but I hope within by mid-November we're up and running here. Let's see. Two-part question. One, in treating Bartonella, how long before you usually see psychological and or nerve presentations start to dissipate? Are these symptoms usually the last to go since they are so deep-seated? Secondly, a month or so ago, you spoke on a GI issue where particles or water was left in the gut and the tummy, making things mushy. Is there a proper name for that? Because for all the years I've been sick, my bowel movements have never been the same, tarry or grainy, and at best never hard. Is it the same as the issue you speak of, or a motility issue? Thank you again. So that I'm going to start with your GI question first. Okay, so there's many causes of what you're describing. One potential cause, okay, and to find out what is more the cause in you, I would need to probably spend some time talking with you to help figure that out, or your physicians could help spend time figuring that out. But what I've talked about in the past is that one reason that people can have mushy stools is that if they have things in their intestines that are attracting water, okay? And in the intestines, particles, things that are in the intestines attract water, like the magnesium that I was just talking about, right? Other supplements may also attract water too. So for instance, if you had mushy stools, but you've been on a lot of supplements during that time, it's possible it could be just a side effect of being on those supplements too, and they're attracting water. But there may be other causes of that as well, okay? All right, so that's that. In terms of Bartonella, so many of you know that I have an article called Kills Bartonella Brief Guide. And in there, I describe various treatment options that you have to treat the co-infection Bartonella. And also in that article, I describe the length of time that it may take to recover, okay? So if you're on a treatment that is working with Bartonella, it will take about 4 to 6 months to completely be done treating it. Okay, so in general, it's going to be about a 4 to 6 month treatment. When you're treating, though, it may take a little time for the symptoms to start getting better. And so what I have found in my practice is that when I have somebody on an effective Bartonella treatment, I usually will start seeing improvements in their symptoms that begin in about 1 to 2 months. It can take 1 to 2 months before you start seeing improvements. In general, what you'll start seeing is most symptoms improve at about the same speed, but even the psychologic symptoms, again, can start improving at about 1 to 2 months, but it's going to take up to 4 to 6 months for things to get better all the way, okay? I don't find that the psychologic symptoms are any harder to deal with in terms of Bartonella symptoms than the other symptoms in terms of improving. I don't find that they have delayed improvement in the way that you describe here, or you question here. Okay, all right. So if you're everyone, if you're looking for ways to treat Bartonella, let me just do a quick screen share here. I'll show you. Okay, so this again is my Lyme disease treatment information site, Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD. And if you're looking for how to treat issues in Lyme disease, all issues in Lyme disease, you're going to find it here under this tab called Online Lyme Guide. Okay, so if you have questions between webinars and you just want to get some general ideas about what I think, you can find them here. All right, and there's 2 ways to access this information. One is look at the way that I've organized things by sections. Okay, so for instance, under this tab called Infection Treatment Plans, you're going to find my ideas on how to treat Bartonella. The other thing to do if you have a question like about diarrhea is just go up here to this search box up at the top and type diarrhea in there. Okay, all right. But for the most part, I've pretty much have written about most topics or things that might come up in a Lyme disease treatment in terms of symptoms, killing germs, etc. You're going to find it all here. So under this Infection Treatment Plans tab, You're going to see there's an article I have about how do you use antibiotics to treat Lyme, for instance. But here's the one for Bartonella. And with Bartonella, you're going to see that there's a video you can watch here, but I basically break my treatments down into 3 different tiers. There's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And in the different tiers, there's different chances of success, okay? But if you're looking at how I would put things together for a treatment, there's your ideas right there, okay? All right. Let's see here, go back. All right. You know what? I've got to flip my blinds here. Just a minute here, everyone. Believe it or not, that was me getting hit by too much sunshine in Seattle. It happens every now and then. It was actually coming right in the window at me there. But anyhow, now I can see the computer. I was getting blinded there for a minute. All right. Trevor, thank you for that question, and good luck to you. Hello, Margaret C. What is the connection between Lyme disease and gallbladder problems? You know, it's an interesting, there's 2 connections that I'm aware of. Okay. Number 1, we think there's some evidence that Lyme lives in a higher concentration, I should put it that way, in the gallbladder compared to other tissues. Now, be aware, Lyme lives everywhere, okay? I mean, it's not confined to just certain tissue areas, but there seems to be a concentration of it in the gallbladder. And because of that, sometimes people can get gallbladder disease of various kinds, okay? All right. The other issue with gallbladder in Lyme disease is that one of the antibiotics that we use to treat Lyme, which is an intravenous antibiotic called ceftriaxone, also known as Rocephin, can sometimes lead to gallstone formation in the gallbladder. And so when somebody is on ceftriaxone, many of us will actually have them on medicines also at the same time to help break up gallstones from happening. Okay. All right. So anyhow, just be aware of that. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question, Margaret. Hello, Megan. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I did a heavy metal test that showed I was literally off the charts for thallium and have a constellation of other metals that are slightly elevated. Do you think it would be helpful generally for a person to get rid of these heavy metals for their healing process, immune function? Also, I can't get above 7 drops twice a day on the Hutania and 21 drops 3 times a day of Sida acuta for Bartonella without major hercs, mostly from the Hutania. I've been on this dose since early May with no super significant improvement in symptoms. Time for switching the regimen. Thanks. All right, let me try to answer both those parts. I'm going to talk about the last part first. So everyone, Hutania and Sida acuta are 2 herbs that I learned about from an herbalist named Buhner. Many of you may have heard something called Buhner herbs. Buhner has written various books about how to use herbs to treat various aspects of Lyme disease, including Bartonella. All right. And 2 of the herbs that he has found helpful at killing Bartonella are the Sida acuta and the Hutania. And I have found those to be helpful too. In terms of how effective they are, I showed you earlier that article where I break Bartonella treatments into 3 different tiers. Tier 1 is made up of all antibiotics, at least taking 2 antibiotics at a time. Tier 2 is using another group of 2 antibiotics. And Tier 3 involves using these 2 herbs called Sida acuta and Hutania. Now, the Sida acuta and Hutania I find to help about 70% to 75% of the time. Okay. Those other antibiotic combinations that I would talk about in my tier 1, I find can help about 80 to 85%, and tier 2, about 80 to, well, about 80%. Okay. So tier 2 is just a little less effective than tier 1. So, if you've done this for since early May, so we got May, June, July, August. Yeah, if it was going to work for you, I would suspect it should have started working by now. If you have Bartonella, this should be working for you by now. Okay. So you might want to talk to your physician if you have one that can help you look at some prescription options. You might even, print off, go on my article, do a right-hand click on your mouse, and you'll have the ability to print in most browsers, print it off and bring it to your doctor and ask them if they would help you look at treating with some of those options that I outlined there. Okay. But generally, you should be seeing improvements by now. As I said, I think in the first question of tonight, usually by around 1 to 2 months, if you're on something that's going to work, you should be starting to see improvements. Okay. All right. In terms of the Bartonella symptoms. All right. All right. All right. Now, in terms of heavy metals, the one thing I have found with heavy metals, and this is even with people with big elevations, even in thallium, for instance, is I, in general, have just not been impressed with the degree of improvement that people get by doing chelation, even when they have massive elevations, okay? And so when I work with heavy metals, the way my approach has been is to look for heavy metal, start to consider heavy metal toxicity, probably later in a treatment, like try a bunch of other things first, the steps that I outline in the Ross Lyme support protocol. I can go through that with you here in a minute. Do those basic steps first for about 6 to 9 months. And then if there are no major improvements, start looking at other possible causes that could be contributing, of which heavy metals is one of those. But I have to tell you, I haven't had great improvements in people's health by going after that. Now, thallium is interesting. It's not an elevation, a massive elevation that I have seen in my practice before. And so I would have to go look up what is the meaning of that. What is it really hurting? Okay. Major elevations that I see often are mercury and lead. Those are the common ones. All right. But a thallium, I'd have to talk to some of the, probably talk to the physicians at, or the PhDs at Doctors Data, which is one of the labs that does that testing to find out what are the real implications of thallium. I just don't know off the top of my head to be able to give you decent comment on that. Okay, let me show you the Ross Lyme support protocol here real quick. Okay. So everyone, my treatment protocol you can find under this tab here called treatment protocol. That's pretty easy to label there. And it's a protocol for chronic Lyme disease treatment, not acute Lyme disease, but for chronic Lyme disease. Okay. All right. It's the Ross Lyme support protocol. And what you'll see is there's some basic things I think anyone ought to be doing as part of their treatment to get better. One is do things to get sleep. All right. Some of those can be lifestyle, but sometimes it means using herbs or medications. Getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep helps restore the immune system and also is very useful at lowering cytokines. All right. Number 2, be on a good diet. And the 2 that I like to often start people on are either a modified paleo diet, which you can find under this tab here, or doing something called elimination diet, which helps removes things we might be allergic to. All right. Number 3, lower cytokines. I talked about those cytokines tonight, but you want to lower them to help improve your symptoms, but they also lowering them helps improve some of the immune suppression too. Number 4, be on an adaptogen. An adaptogen is an herb that helps support your adrenals and your thyroid, helps the body deal with the stress that it's under. And for that, I like using ashwagandha. Number 5, figure out if you have any problems with your adrenals or your thyroid, and if you do, fix them. Number 6, be on a good multivitamin. Number 7, do some basic detox steps. which is eat organic foods, avoid gluten, scent, alcohol, tobacco, decrease emotional stress, and support liver detoxification. I like using a substance called glutathione to do that. Number 8, do exercise to tolerance. Now, some people are just too sick to exercise, okay? But if you can find a level of exercise you can do, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes, do that. You just want to find a level that doesn't make you worse the next day, okay? All right. I do not believe in the beginning of treatment in doing specific immune boosters because getting sleep, lowering cytokines, being on ashwagandha, fixing your hormones, getting some of the infections under control actually boost your immune system, all right? Number 10, treat for too many yeast in your intestines if they're there, and I talked to you about how to figure that out here. Number 11, treat your Lyme infection. Number 12, deal with your co-infections, okay? Now, if you're doing all of these steps and you're about 4 to 6 or about 6 months, 9 months into treatment and you're not getting better, then it's time to start looking at additional things like looking for heavy metal toxicity like I described here, okay? All right, but make sure you're doing those 12 initial steps in the Ross Lyme support protocol, because those are the basic steps to set the foundation to get better. And again, I'm not a big believer in the benefits of doing chelation therapy as a means of getting over Lyme. I don't think that it has great benefit for the majority of people. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question, Megan, and good luck to you. Hello, I think it's Isa, if I'm correct. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce your name, but I hope I got that right. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Thanks so much for taking the time to answer our question. You're welcome. I'm the caregiver for my best friend who we think has Lyme, Bartonella, etc. He has been on the Walls diet for over a year, as suggested by a Lyme literate naturopath. Walls is a type of anti-inflammatory paleo diet, quite close to the Mito food plan that you recommend. Yeah, they're actually quite similar. In fact, I think Dr. Walls, Dr. Terry Walls, was one of the designers of the Mito food plan. Many of you may know that's the paleo diet I recommend. I showed that to you here a little bit ago in the Ross Lyme support protocol. That article that I wrote about it is based on the Mito food plan from a group called the Institute for Functional Medicine, and Dr. Walls is greatly involved in that group as well too. Okay, let's see. My friend hasn't seen any improvement over the past year or so, as well as addressing possible yeast overgrowth and trying disulfiram. We are thinking of shifting him to a plant-based diet that is focused on whole grains and legumes, as well as lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. The evidence seems to be very strong that this type of diet is healthy for people without Lyme. I'm wondering if you have seen evidence that whole grains and legumes are problematic for people with Lyme. I know that they contain lectins, but my understanding is that these are broken down by proper cooking. Thanks. So I don't think the lectins are a problem here. And regarding the diet, again, there's 2 places I suggest that people start, but then if it's not working for them, then you have to branch out, okay? So the places I have people start are a paleo diet, like a Walls diet or the Mito food plan. The reason I do that is those diets are rich in organic fruits and vegetables in a limited way, okay, and also they are limited in carbohydrates from grains and from beans and legumes and those sources, okay? Now, the reason I recommend to be low carb is that I don't want to necessarily feed yeast in the intestines, okay? I will tell you, though, that there are a number of people that I've tried doing paleo diets on that they just don't respond to them. In fact, they do worse, which brings me to another point that I have learned in my years of doing medicine, and that is, although there may be a generally more ideal type of diet for a certain health condition, that doesn't mean it's necessarily ideal for you, okay? And the only way ultimately with any diet is to try and see what happens to a person. There is not one right diet that is right for everyone in the same situation. There just isn't, okay? So I have had people do better being on a type of diet like you described here. And I don't find much problem with the lectins. Okay. Now, the thing that you're going to have to be careful if you start going more for the grains and the beans and legumes, for instance, is that again, they're carb sources. Okay. So if your friend does get on antibiotics, whether they're herbal or prescription antibiotics, they're going to need to be pretty diligent about using probiotics aggressively to help to help fight back yeast in the intestines. Okay, so your intestines are lined with both healthy bacteria and yeast. And if that healthy bacteria gets knocked down too much, yeast can grow. Okay, can grow too much, and you get yeast overgrowth. And I think you mentioned your friend may have. There's a potential of too much yeast here as well too. Just be careful with the probiotics. Keep taking those. Okay. When I'm trying to be really aggressive with probiotics with somebody, there's two that I like to use, two general kinds. Okay. One is I like to use bacteria that are based on bacteria that actually live in healthy intestines. And the major groups tend to be something called bifidobacterium and something called lactobacillus, of which the most famous kind of lactobacillus is Lactobacillus acidophilus. Everyone's heard of acidophilus, okay? All right, and that I like to have somebody take at least a couple capsules a day of that. The product I like that has both of those in it is something called human HMF Forte, Human Microflora, HMF Forte by a company called Genestra. Okay, all right. And I often will like to combine that with a soil-based probiotic. All right. Soil-based probiotics are made up of bacteria that come out of the soil. They tend to be they are spore forming, which means that when they're under stress, like going into in the pill form, they're under stress. And also when they're going through your system until they get in the intestines, they're going to be in a spore form. And a spore form is like a very protective form. Okay. Now, when those spore forming probiotics get into your intestines, they open up, start growing. And what they seem to do is that they support our good bacteria. They help our good bacteria to do a better job, basically, and to gain a foothold in the intestines and to live there well. Okay, so generally, I like using that. The spore-forming probiotic that I tend to use most is something called Corebiotic, Corebiotic, by a company called Research Nutritionals. And I would have a person do 2 pills 1 time a day of that. Okay, all right. So I hope that gives you some information there. And thanks for that question. Let's see here. I'm just trying to clean out some ones questions that showed up twice here. Just bear with me here a minute. Hello, Colleen. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I'm living in New York and am a former patient of yours. I had flown out to see you 3.5 years ago, and you were my prescribing physician. When you reestablish your practice in Seattle, can I pick up where we left off and have you as my prescribing physician? What date will you be starting up again, and how can an appointment be scheduled with you? I figured that question was going to come up tonight. Bear with me here, everyone. Just a minute. Okay. So in terms of reopening my practice, as I said earlier, I'm kind of in the middle of trying to figure out where that is going to be. I was negotiating a lease on a space about a month ago, and that fell through. So I'm back to the drawing board again. I think I have actually located a location and a clinic space, and now I'm starting that process of negotiating once more. All right. If this all comes together as planned, and I said if it comes together as planned, I would like to be reopening about mid-November. And so how you can find out about my reopening is for those of you that have been established patients of mine at one time, there is a secure email communication system I still have that I'm going to send out a group email to, and that's a system called UpDocs. And so look for an email to come to you through UpDocs saying I'm reopening, and it will explain how to get an appointment and when I'll be reopening. Okay, all right. For those of you that have not been a patient of mine that want to become a patient of mine, there's two ways to get on an email list where I will be sending notification out to. One of those is to sign up for the email list that I have at Treat Lyme by Marty Ross MD. So at treatlyme.net, sign up for my email list there. Once I know for sure what's going on, I'll send out a group email there. The other place is if you've ever ordered at my supplement store and you've signed up for the email list there, I will be sending out notification there too. Okay, so there's three ways I'm going to try to send out notification, and obviously I'll be announcing it here in the webinars too. Okay, so it could be as soon as November. All right. Now I am going to be relaunching a new website as well too. My old clinic name was the Healing Arts Partnership, and that website was at thehealingartspartnership.net, and that is just a mouthful. Anyhow, if you were to try to go there, what I'm eventually going to do, I anticipate a new website being ready to go in about 2 weeks. And if you were to try to go to my old clinic website, thehealingartspartnership.net, I'm going to have it redirect to my new clinic website. Okay. I'm changing the name of my clinic. It's going to be called Marty Ross MD Healing Arts. And the new URL for that is going to be martyrossmd.com. Okay. And that is where the new website is going to be located. But again, that's about 2 weeks away from launching at this point. So the other thing to do if you're not wanting to wait for an email to come to you is just periodically check at martyrossmd.com to see if there's something live. And also go to my old clinic website, thehealingartspartnership.net, that when I finally have my new website launched with information about how do you set up appointments, it will redirect you there as well too. Okay. All right. So at the earliest, I'm anticipating this is going to be November. All right. Now, in terms of patients that have been patients of mine before, for me to, as many of you know, those patients I would see in office, but also I would do in between office visits, especially for people that were coming from afar. I would do video visits with patients. Okay. To reestablish myself as your prescriber, though, because I have been out of practice for about a year now, I'm going to require that everyone have an in-person visit with me first before I start prescribing again. And that is, I think it's good medicine, but also I need to do that to make sure that my medical board doesn't see any problems there too. Okay. All right. So that's a lot of information, but I knew it would come up tonight. But Colleen, thank you for asking that question. And I hope that gives you the information that you need. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you again. And I do remember who you are, actually. Yep. Hello, Amanda. Let's see, is Lyme and co-infections transmitted sexually? That is the $1 million question. It could be. And I think that it is, but I don't think it's common that it is. All right. Now I'm giving you opinion here. All right. Let me tell you what the science says, and then I'll tell you why I'm giving you an opinion. All right. So the science says that it is found in the male ejaculate, and it's also found in female's vaginal fluid. In other words, in our sex fluids, okay? And we know from the world of syphilis, which is also a spirochete like Lyme. It's a different germ altogether, okay? I'm not trying to say if you have Lyme, you have syphilis. Different infection altogether. But we can look at the world of syphilis. In the world of syphilis, we know that it's in the fluids and it can be sexually transmitted, okay? So there's been a couple studies done that had show it's in the fluids. And these were similar studies. And in both studies, they looked at men that had Lyme and women that had Lyme. And they looked to see, was it in the fluids? And one study showed that in men that had Lyme, 50% of the time it was in the male ejaculate. And in females, it was in their vaginal fluid when they had it 100% of the time. All right. Second study that was done, similar design to the study, had flipped results. It said 50% of the time that female had it, it showed up in her vaginal fluid as well. And 100% of the time that a man had it, it showed up in his male ejaculate. Okay, so we know it can be in the fluids. Okay, All right, then, if you Google about this, you're going to find an article authored by a physician named Stricker and a PhD named, I think, Middleton or Middleveen, if I'm correct. I'm sorry to not be getting that quite correct, but they came up with a study, I think maybe about 4 years ago now, if my memory serves me correct, that they claimed showed that Lyme is sexually transmitted. And what I would say to you is, it's a horrible study. It's horrible, all right? And you cannot make the conclusions that they made. It just is not practical. In fact, Stricker went publicly, I think it was quoted as saying something like, based on this study, we have more to be fear in our bedrooms than we do playing out in our backyards, which I think is ludicrous, okay? So the only reason I'm telling you about that article, you're going to find it, okay? But I want to let you know, I think it's a garbage study, and here's why, all right? In that study, they looked at only 13 people. I will tell you in medicine, for things to be repeatable, for things to be seen across populations, when we do a study, we have to do them on hundreds to thousands of people to know that it is something we would see in a large population. All right. So a study of 13 people may not even be able to be replicated in others. It's too small of a group. Okay. That's one problem with it. Second problem, though, is that the way how they did the study, and let me talk about that. So in these 13 people, they looked to see what was it in the male ejaculate, was it in the female's vaginal fluid, okay? And they had the ability to tell specifically when it was in the fluids, what type of Lyme was it, what exact species and strain was it, okay? All right. And so in this group of 13, there were actually 6 people that were in couples, all right? So 3 couples of 2, all right? And in the study, the male and female in each of these couple were found to have Lyme in their fluids and have identical strains. So the authors concluded that must mean it's sexually transmitted, all right? Now here's the problem with it. When they're measuring the female's vaginal fluid, that Lyme that gets into her vaginal fluid can come from 2 places. It can either come from living in her blood and leaking into the vaginal fluid, in which case it's her Lyme, okay? All right. Or it could have been deposited the last time her male partner ejaculated into her vagina, and maybe it never would ever get picked up into her bloodstream and not be transmitted, okay? So when they said it showed up in the female's vagina and it was the same strain as in the male, I don't know what that means. I don't know whether it means the woman is actually infected, meaning it's in her blood, or it's because her partner ejaculated in her about 2 or 3 days ago and the Lyme germ is still living there from the partner, which doesn't mean that the female is infected with the same strain. Okay? All right. So I don't think we can say for sure. Okay. Then, based on my clinical experience, I did find maybe about 20% of patients that would see me would both have Lyme in a couple. And that seems to be a little bit high for this not being sexually transmitted, okay? But so I think there is the possibility of sexually transmission. I think it may be low possibility, though. I mean, I don't think it happens all the time, basically, okay? All right. There you go. I know that's kind of a difficult topic. Let me show you an article you can look at where I actually get into what do you do about protection then, what do you do to protect yourself, etc. And I get where you can look more at my opinions on that. Let me do a quick screen share here. All right, let's see here. I have a section here called transmission. All right. Can Lyme be sexually transmitted? I said yes, but I think it's actually a small percentage, okay? And in here, I go through some questions. Should I have my healthy sexual partner tested for Lyme disease? But shouldn't I have my sexual partner tested to prevent him or her from transmitting the germ back to me? All right. The last question I try to answer here is, should I tell my new sexual partner that I have Lyme? Should we use condoms? Okay. All of this is controversial, but I cover it here and give you my thinking on that. Okay. All right. All right, Amanda. Thanks for that question. And good luck to you. Hello, Doug. Let's see. Going from a BART to your tier 3 protocol, should there be a pause in treatment for the interaction precaution? Interaction precaution. Let's see. One, can mold and BART be treated at the same time, and could mold possibly be keeping us sick? Two, what's one mold test you recommend? Three, in need of a good but inexpensive probiotic, which do you recommend? And five, will you take Skype patients? If so, how much? Six, I take nystatin, 100,000 4 times a day and 1 times a day, 200 milligram. And are these okay to take with supplements and ABART on your T3 protocol? Okay, all right. I will answer all those. And I think we'll go through those pretty quickly. All right. So as many of you already know, I talked tonight about that I break treatments into 3 tiers. So tier 3 is Acida acuta and Hootenea. The ABART that Doug is talking about is a product made by Byron White Formulas, which is an herbal product that I know some of my colleagues use. I just haven't found good success with it. I don't see, Doug, any reason that you can't just go right to the Hootenea and Acida. In fact, I've actually had, as I said, I'm not a big believer in ABART, but I do think some people do get some benefits of it. And I have had a patient or two where I've actually done treatments that involve using ABART, Acida acuta, and Hootenea together, and I find no problem blending those together. Okay, all right. Can mold and Bartonella be treated at the same time? Absolutely. I think what you're referring to is mold toxicity illness, where you build up mold toxins in the environment get into you. There's about 25% of people, everyone, whether they have Lyme or don't have Lyme, 25% of all people, all right, for some reason are not able, or not for some reason, there is a reason, but are not able to remove mold toxins that get caught in their body. That they would breathe these mold toxins in from their environment, from homes they've been in that might have mold, workspaces they might have that have mold. Okay. And the trouble is if you are one of those 25% and you build up mold toxins in you and you're not able to get rid of them, that can trigger an ongoing inflammation problem that increases cytokines. And it can look very similar to what Lyme disease does. Okay. And the treatment is to try to bind those mold toxins to get them out of you. Let me say a few more words about that. So what happens in 75% of people, when we breathe in, drink in, eat in a mold toxin, they get absorbed into our bloodstream and our immune system sees them, all right? And it tags them to be broken down. And eventually the immune system breaks them down and they get peed out and pooped out of our body in their broken down form, okay? Now, if you happen to be a person that is genetically set up that your immune system doesn't work correctly, the immune system doesn't tag them, all right? And they go to the liver not correctly tagged. The liver is supposed to be able to take things that are fat-based toxins like mold toxins, and the liver is supposed to be able to change them into a water-based toxin that we could then pee out. But the liver can't do it with this mold toxin. So the liver takes these mold toxins, they go into the liver as a fat toxin, they come out as a fat toxin, and then they get mixed out in our poop and our intestines, and they eventually get absorbed back into the bloodstream. So you just get this endless loop of mold toxins going around and around, triggering increased cytokines, keeping you sick. All right. So the treatment for mold toxin illness, the first kind of treatment you do is to be on things that are called binders to pull those toxins out. And I have treated patients for Bartonella while I am simultaneously using binders to remove their mold toxins. There's no problem doing that. Okay. All right. What is the mold test that I recommend? So in terms of doing mold testing, the guru, the godfather of mold toxicity is a physician named Dr. Richie Shoemaker. Okay. And Dr. Shoemaker was the pioneer in this field and came up with a whole elaborate science and even testing that he would do that would show if you have the genetic predisposition for this problem. That's a test called an HLA-DR test, okay? I used to do that test to see if people had the predisposition under the idea that they were predisposed genetically to the problem, then I should treat it, okay? But that I found in using his HLA-DR test that it's not always an accurate predictor of who is going to get better by treating. And I found that I could treat in people that I had a high suspicion of mold toxicity illness, and they may not even have any abnormalities in the HLDR. In other words, I don't find it to be a useful predictor of who should be treated for this illness. So I would not do the HLA-DR test. I know there's a number of my colleagues out there that still do that, but I wouldn't do it. What I would do, and Dr. Shoemaker has kind of fallen behind in where the science is on this now. The science has advanced. We now have a couple labs that have the ability through different testing techniques to see if the mold toxins are actually in you, okay, and measure those mold toxins. And that you do this by a urine test, okay. One of the labs is Real-Time Labs out of Texas, and there's another lab called Great Plains Lab. I'm trying to think where they're based. I'm not sure where they're based out of. Before I stopped practicing a year ago, the lab I was using was Real-Time. As I get back into practice, I also want to start doing the Great Plains just to see how useful that test is. I know a number of my colleagues use it. They're finding it to be useful. Now, both of these labs test to see if you have mold toxins in different ways. They're both urine tests, but one is using something called gas chromatography to see if you have these toxins in you, and another one is using a process that's an immune-based process to see if you have these mold toxins in you, okay? I frankly don't know what's the better way. And I think even doctors that have been using both of those are not sure at this point either, as I've talked to my colleagues, okay? But I hope with over the year, as I get back into practice here within the year or so, as I start working with both techniques to be able to report back to you. I know the Great Plains lab is a much cheaper lab than what the Real-Time lab is, okay? All right. I did find the Real-Time lab to be quite useful at identifying if somebody had elevated mold toxins, and I use that as a way to guide whether I was or was not going to treat. Okay? All right. Let's see. Inexpensive probiotic. Probably what I would do, I would look at the core biotic, the spore-forming probiotic that I mentioned earlier, and that's the one made by Research Nutritionals, and I do a couple pills of that one time a day. Let's see. In terms of treating yeast, I think you mentioned you're using nystatin, and you're probably doing diflucan. That's the 200 milligrams a day. I think you wrote. Is this okay to use these as part of a tier 3 Bartonella protocol? Yes, it is. I have done that before in my practice. And then finally, many of you are familiar, before I stopped practicing a year ago, that I was doing an online consult practice where people never did come to see me, but I would still visit with them and give them treatment ideas over the internet. At that time, I was using Skype. I may use something more secure as we get going here again. And the answer is yes, I plan on doing those type of visits again. I'm not quite fully sure what my charge structure is going to be on that yet. That information I will be posting on my new website when I get that up and running in a couple weeks as well too. Okay. Now, keep in mind, for those of you that may be interested in that, because I don't see you in person and don't get to examine you, I'm not able to prescribe or order testing. All right. My medical board would not be happy with me for doing that. But I still can give you ideas in terms of herbal medicine and diagnosis ideas, and ideas that you could take to your physician then and talk about. And I send you a medical visit note that is a doctor's note, a doctor's visit note that you can then take to your provider to see if they can give you some help based on my recommendations. Okay? And I plan on doing that again. All right. Thanks for that question, Doug. Good luck to you. All right. I'm just going to do a quick screen share here. So many of you, I've mentioned a number of supplements tonight. And if you're wondering where you can find the things I recommend, this is my supplement store called Marty Ross MD Supplements. You can find it at treatlyme.com. In terms of the various things I have recommended tonight, like core biotic, you can just go ahead and type in core biotic up here. And Research Nutritionals actually has two products. One that is a fiber-free, it's called probiotic sensitive, and one that has a little bit of fiber in it to help support the bacteria. Okay, all right. Another way to find supplements I've recommended tonight is you can just go up here to the supplements tab, and you can see that I've organized things by manufacturer over here, like Research Nutritionals, or you can see I've organized them by various topics like probiotics. Okay, all right. Huh. I think I forgot to do the screen share there. Let me bear with me here a minute. Let me do that again. All right. Let's see. All right. So this again, this is back at this is Marty Ross MD supplements. Okay. And as I said, if you want to find probiotic, just go ahead and type it in up here. Okay, that'll show you the 2 probiotic products I have. If the other way to find things is if you're looking for what I recommend for pain, you can find it there. You can find probiotics under the probiotics tab here, for instance. Okay, all right. But anyone can use this site. In terms of Marty Ross MD supplements, many of you know that over this last year, I was actually operating this out of Austin, Texas. And in fact, I'm leaving my shipping facility down in Austin, Texas. It's easier to get things to most of the country from there than from here in Seattle, Washington. So it is a little bit quicker to get from you there. But anyhow, anyone can use that site. Okay. All right. All right. Let's go on here. Hello, Mary. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Couple of questions. Number 1. My blood work of Epstein-Barr virus shows high markers on early antigen, EBV viral capsid 750, and the EBV nuclear antigen 593 is more indicative of Bartonella. Second question, any experience with patients experiencing pseudotumor cerebri, antibiotic, or herbal treatment? All right. So pseudotumor cerebri, everyone, means that somebody has elevated pressure up in the head, and we don't know why, basically. I haven't seen that occur, Mary, in anyone that I've treated with Lyme disease. And again, I've been treating Lyme disease since 2004, with the exception of taking this last year off. So I don't know. I don't know the best way to go about that. I don't often think of that as being a Lyme caused problem. Okay. All right. In terms of, I'm not quite sure what you were trying to say with your question here. I don't know that pattern indicates Bartonella, because this is really measuring antibody response to the monovirus, which is the Epstein-Barr virus. But I'm not clear I understand what your question is. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to give you a good answer on that. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Alexander. Let's see. Hi, doctor. Is it frequent that liver enzymes become elevated strictly due to Lyme infection? If so, which co-infection tend to cause that elevation? All right. So liver enzymes, everyone, is something called AST and ALT. They also go by the name SGOT and SGPT, I believe. Anyhow, those liver enzymes can become elevated during treatment, usually more related actually to the antibiotics. Various antibiotics that we use may have the ability of inflaming the liver and elevating those enzymes. When those enzymes become elevated, that's a sign of inflammation. Okay. But I have also found in my practice that there are a very small number of people that it is the Lyme germ elevating their liver enzymes. I am not aware that Bartonella or Babesia do. I have not seen that happen. But for instance, I had somebody that had severe elevations in their liver enzymes, and we stopped all of the medicines that could be leading to the elevation, and that elevation still continued. I looked for the other common causes of hepatitis, liver inflammation from infection. There's various viruses that we can test for. I tested for those. Those persons didn't have any of that. And I finally started wondering, is this a Lyme hepatitis? Could Lyme be inflaming the liver? And it wasn't until we actually started aggressively treating the Lyme, even using some of the antibiotics we thought that could have been responsible for inflaming the liver, that when we finally got in and started really treating it, that the liver inflammation went away. So there is a small group of people that have Lyme that can have a Lyme hepatitis. I have seen that happen in my practice. And so the treatment is treating for it. Okay. I have not seen that occur with Bartonella, nor have I seen that occur with Babesia. You will not see this described in any of the literature. I'm not aware of anyone that's done studies about this, and the infectious disease doctors have not described this as well too. Okay. All right. One thing to do, if you do happen to have elevated liver enzymes, and whether it's being caused by the germs or whether it's being caused by your antibiotics, is to take herbal medicines that support liver function and liver detox specifically, okay? And what is useful for that is to use glutathione. So glutathione is the master detox chemical that is made in every one of our cells. It's actually a master antioxidant, and its purpose is to fix things, okay? It's supposed to fix damage that develops in our cells. And it just so happens that in the brain and the liver, it's used, well, actually more in the liver, it's used as the main detox chemical as well too. Okay. And so if you take more of it, it can help start repairing liver injury. And so if somebody's got a lot of elevated liver enzymes, what I like to do is get them on liposomal glutathione. The reason to do liposomal is that glutathione is actually very poorly absorbed most of the time. But in a liposomal form, which means it's microscopically wrapped in fat, it leads to increased absorption, okay? In fact, Research Nutritionals, who has a product called Tri-Fortify, they have a couple flavors on that, Tri-Fortify Orange, Tri-Fortify Watermelon, has done some studies where they show substantial elevations in red blood cell glutathione levels when people start using their product, suggesting that it actually is very well absorbed. All right. And that tends to be the product that I use as well too. If you're going to use that to support your liver, if you have hepatitis or liver inflammation, then I usually recommend that people take 1 teaspoon, which is also known as 5 milliliters, one time a day, of that liposomal glutathione. Okay. All right. And then finally, the one thing I have found too in treating Lyme is that we have to accept, I think, in some people, we're going to have some moderate elevations in liver enzymes. And so in my treatment, I was okay when I was treating patients, and as I start treating people again, and letting people have a small degree of elevation of liver enzymes. And so when we get liver enzyme lab testing back from the lab, there's a range of normal. Okay, so for instance, AST, depending on the lab, the normal range may be 20 to 40 is normal. All right. And so if I've got somebody that has something above that, I was okay treating them and not changing antibiotics or pulling them off antibiotics as long as I could keep that number less than 2 times the upper end of normal. Okay. So again, normal range might be 20 to 40, depending on the lab. Okay. But 20 to 40, I would want to keep their AST so it was 80 or lower, which is 2 times the upper end of normal, the upper end of normal being 40. Okay. All right. So anyhow, I hope that gives you some insight, and good luck to you. Hello, Paula. Let's see. I've tried everything for dysbiosis. Any suggestions? Probiotics seem to make it worse. I need the more sensitive and biocidin, slippery elm, DGL. Nothing seems to help. I had a Seymour test. It was negative. I'm on diflucan for yeast, but it is still killing me, and I don't know what to do. Paula, given that I know you've tried a lot of things, it would be hard for me to make a suggestion. I would be jumping in, and I don't know where to go with this. I would need to ask you a lot of questions to find out specifically what's going on with your gut. I would also want to know a little bit more. If you haven't been responding to things, is it possible that you might have something called small intestine bacteria overgrowth, which is called SIBO? So there's a lot of things I would need to know a little bit more about. Unfortunately, I can't give you a good answer here. All right. All right. Good luck to you. Hello, Marie. Let's see. Is it safe to have a reveal device inserted with Lyme? Cardiologist wants to try and work out why 21-year-old daughter having unexplained chest pain and fading spells. Thank you so much for all your help with these wonderful webinars. It's a good question. The only, I don't know. I just have to start by saying that I haven't had this had a situation where one of my patients was having this device inserted as a means of the cardiologist measuring what's going on. Okay, the only comment I would make is that whenever you do something that could involving cutting, inserting, there's always the possibility of scar tissue developing. And Lyme likes to live in scar tissue. It just does. Okay. So you may be increasing the opportunity for Lyme to find another place to live. The reason it goes for scar tissue is that Lyme does not like oxygen. All right. Oxygen is toxic to Lyme. Oxygen kills Lyme. Lyme specifically tries to get out of the bloodstream quickly and move into tissues with poor blood flow, which scar tissue could be part of that. Okay. Now, having said that, I'm just giving you a theoretical concern. There are times, even if you're going to increase scar tissue, that you've got to do studies to figure out what's going on. And in this case, I would say you probably have good reason to do this, even if there are risks of potential developing more scar tissue. Okay. There have been no studies done that I could point to that would tell me one way or another. And I don't have any practical experience knowing whether this creates a problem or not. But based on just what you said here, if your daughter's having significant problems, I would probably counsel you to take the chance. Okay. That's just my opinion, though. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, and good luck to your daughter too. Hold on here, everyone. Hello, Lisa. Let's see. Welcome back. Hope all is going well with getting your practice up and running again. Thanks, Lisa. It's going fairly well. It's a few hiccups here and there, but we'll work through it. Again, I'm hoping for mid-November here at this point. Let's see. What would be a good supplement for a healthy teenager to prevent frequent viruses while in college? Will you be using DSF and IM antibiotics in your practice? Thoughts on cystis T? Lastly, what is the dose for ashwagandha for adrenal fatigue? Okay. So ashwagandha for adrenal fatigue. Ashwagandha, again, everyone, is an herbal medicine that historically has been used in Chinese medicine, also in Ayurvedic East Indian medicine as an adaptogen. Also has animal studies that show that it supports both adrenal and more effective thyroid function. And in Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine has been used historically because it's known to give people under stress better energy. Okay, it's an adaptogen. All right. So generally what I like to do is the product I've been using is a I'm blank. I can't even see the bottle in my Organic India. It's an Organic India product. It comes as a 400 milligram pill. I know that Ayush Herbs also makes a 500 milligram pill, but somewhere in the 400 to 500 milligram per pill range. And I have a person do 2 pills in the morning and 2 pills between 1 and 2. That tends to be how I do it. I know some of my colleagues use it to help with sleep. I find it often too stimulating. And so I try to have people take it earlier in the day and not use it after about 1 or 2 so that it's not going to be staying on board and disturbing sleep at nighttime. Okay, so a 400 or 500 milligram pill, 2 pills twice a day, basically. Okay, let's see. I think by DSF, I think you mean disulfiram, if I'm correct. And the answer is yes. I plan on, when I get back into practice, starting to work with the disulfiram. I'm actually, many of you may be familiar, there's disulfiram is a medicine known as antabuse, or disulfiram is the generic name of a drug called antabuse, okay, which has historically been used to treat alcoholism. But there is some laboratory evidence showing that it could be useful against treating what is known as persister Lyme, basically that starts ignoring antibiotics. And so one of my colleagues, Dr. Ken Liegner, has done some initial limited case reports of about a few people in his practice he's tried the disulfiram on with pretty good results. I'm actually going to be at a conference, the ILADS conference, the International Lyme Associated Diseases Society conference. The annual meeting is going to be in Boston, November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And I'm going to be out there at that meeting. And I know Ken Liegner, Dr. Liegner, who has published about this, is going to be doing a talk about his experience. I know a number of my other colleagues have been using it in their practice. And I want to hear what they have to say, but I anticipate offering this in my practice and learning firsthand whether it's going to work. But after I get informed consent from my patients so they know this is a new treatment. And so I don't see any drawbacks to doing it, but I need to have that informed consent process. Would I do IM antibiotics? Yep, I do. I have historically done that in my practice, and I would plan on doing that again. I usually educate people, family members, and even patients themselves how to give it to themselves. So I have no problem doing that. In terms of preventing frequent viruses, so I like working with mushrooms to do that. So mushrooms have a sugar in them that stimulates what is known as cellular immunity, the cells that fight infections. And of all the mushrooms, in terms of those that can stimulate the immune system, there's a variety. I mean, there's things like shiitake and maitake mushrooms. But the one that seems to do the best, cordyceps is another one too, but the one that seems to do the best at viral infections, viral prevention, is reishi. So it's REISHI. Comes as about a 400 milligram pill. And if I've got somebody that they're heading into heavy viral season and they tend to pick up everything, I would have them take 400 milligrams 3 times a day. Okay. As a preventive. The other thing you might do that I have people do is when we start entering viral season is to keep on hand something that you can use acutely to boost the immune system if they, at the first sign they're getting something viral, whether it's intestinal virus or respiratory virus. And that is a product called ProBoost, which is made up of something called thymus gland protein A, or thymic protein A. Thymus gland is an organ that sits here in our chest, and it is large when we're young, but as we get older, it shrinks in size. So it's very active in children, but it's not that active in adults. But it makes this protein called thymic protein A, and thymic protein A will rapidly turn on your cellular immunity. So my approach in viral season is to make sure that people, if we're trying to prevent viruses, or somebody that gets every virus that comes around, would be the reishi mushrooms, 400 milligrams 3 times a day. And that if the earliest sign that somebody is getting something viral, have the ProBoost on hand, have it there. And it comes in a little powder packet. You do 1 packet under the tongue 3 times on day 1, and you separate your doses by about 2 hours. And then on day 2, you do it 3 more times, but you separate each dose by about 8 hours. And I use that myself. I have found to be very effective at limiting viral illnesses from becoming something major. And I've seen good results in my patients as well, too. Let me show you something you can take a look at on that one real quick here. Let's see. Yeah. All right. Let me just show you that here. I want to make sure I had reviewed most of your question. I think I did. All right, so back here in treat Lyme. Let's look at, I'm just going to write viruses here. Yeah, here. So it's this article. It's called Keep This Cold and Flu Package on Hand for Fast Results. Okay. And in here, I talk about the thymic protein A. And let's see. Huh. And I do talk about the reishi mushrooms here as well too. Okay. So you can prevent, I give you that information down here. The olive leaf extract that I'm talking about here is sometimes if you're really sick, you can use the olive leaf to actually kill an active virus infection. I often find you don't need to do that. Just the thymic protein A works quite well. Okay. All right. All right. Lisa, thank you for that question. I have to, this is a side note, everyone. I have to tell you, I'm enjoying being back here in Seattle again. I don't know if many of you noticed as you've been watching the webinars over the last year, I've had to be very careful about how I couch things and say things so that I could not be interpreted as diagnosing or directly trying to treat a person because I wasn't licensed in Texas. But I'm enjoying being able to be much more open and rather than describing my experience, actually telling you what I think will work and how to do it. I'm not having to be as careful. It's good to have that freedom again as I'm back here in Seattle where I'm licensed to practice medicine. So that's all good stuff. Anyhow, I just thought I'd share that. Thanks, Lisa. Hello, Pat. Let's see. When I wake, my eyes are ridiculously dry, so much so that I almost can't even bear to open my eyes. Could this be a Lyme thing? And if so, why might that be? And what can I do? I like to do things naturally without pharmaceuticals or chemicals of any kind. I'm treating Lyme and Babesia Bartonella with herbal antibiotics. Thank you, Dr. Ross. Pat, I would probably talk to your eye doctor. They should look at your eyes and just see if is there a pathology, something that anyone can get. I don't often think of dry eyes as specifically a Lyme disease problem. However, Lyme disease can trigger some autoimmune conditions that sometimes can give dry eyes. Okay. Secondly, some medications that people take, prescriptions usually, can be very drying to the eyes as well too. But I would probably start by talking to your eye doctor first, get them to do a good eye exam to see if they can figure out what's going on. Okay. All right. Thanks for that question. So Doug says 1 times a day, 200 milligrams is the fluconazole. That's what I thought you were talking about. So good. Thanks, Doug. Let's see. This is from B. Hi, Dr. Marty. Thanks for helping. You're welcome. I was diagnosed with mold toxin illness and the skin form of Lyme. Now taking rifampin and clarithromycin and just added grapefruit seed extract. Just changed from doxy, metronidazole, and Bactrim after 6 months. Now 2 years into treatment. Cholestyramine for mold, Singulair for shortness of breath, and hydroxyzine as well as naltrexone. On a gluten-free, dairy-free, and sugar-free diet, it is excruciatingly slow recovery. Any more suggestions? These are the kind of situations I usually like to take a pretty detailed history. Because usually I'm able to find a way to help people break through. Okay. And I can understand the frustration if you're having a slow recovery. I don't know that I can give you the best answer for your situation because I hear what you've been through, but I need to know a lot more about you, your specific situation, and what factors could be blocking you. Okay. So in a minute here, I'm going to show you an article you can read, a whole chapter I have about things to look at if you're not getting better. All right. However, having said that, you might also want to take a look at this article, what the information that I talked about just a little bit ago. I have an article about antabuse as a means of trying to break through on your treatment. Also, look at articles about how to treat persister Lyme. Okay, so persister Lyme might be helped by dapsone, which is something Dr. Horowitz came up with a couple years ago, or this antabuse, or there's some other ways to do that too. But there may be something else going on too. I can't tell by just this brief explanation. Okay, so let me show you a few things to take a look at. Okay, so I have a chapter called Can't Get Better, Do This. Okay, and in here you're going to see different things that I describe about how do you get your treatment to move forward. What other things might you want to take a look at? Okay, so this is one option for you. Okay, the other thing, and to get a good overview of all these other things you might want to do, there's an article that I link here called "Treatment Stuck. Try these steps at 6 months and beyond." Okay, so I would take a look at that, and again, you can find that in the "Can't Get Better, Do This" section of my Lyme guide. Okay. All right. So right there. Okay. All right. All right. And then take a look at the under infection treatment plans. Take a look at this article on how to treat persister Lyme, what works. All right. And I believe in here, yeah. I talk about new ideas, of which antabuse is one of those, and I link to my antabuse article as well too. Okay, all right. All right, B. I hope that gives you some resources to take a look at. Okay, all right. Hi, Doug. So Doug is giving me additional comments here. MTHFR is also an issue for me. So MTHFR, everyone, is a detox issue, a specific kind of detox issue. I write about it on the website, but without going into full detail about it. Doug, I don't see an issue. My response is that I said earlier, I would stand by even knowing this information as well too. Okay? All right. I'm going to do another screen share here. There's two things I want to show you. All right. So earlier tonight, I talked about mold toxin illness, and it's a pretty complex topic, but it is one area that if you happen to have it, it can really block your treatment. So the question I just asked about what steps might you want to take if you're not getting better, looking for mold toxin illness is a big one. It can look exactly like Lyme disease does, okay? So where you can find information about the mold detox is in my detoxification chapter, and take a look at this article called Mold and Lyme Toxin Illness. And if you want to know more about this thing called MTHFR detoxification problem, take a look at this article here, okay? All right. All right. Thanks, Doug. Hello, Amanda. Let's see. I was just diagnosed with Rocky Mountain spotted fever. I also have Lyme and was finally diagnosed 2 years ago. I do not know when I contacted Rocky Mountain spotted fever, but I just started taking doxycycline 100 milligrams 2 times a day. I was wondering if you think the medication will help, since I believe must have had this for a while. What can I do to prevent getting sicker over time once I stop the medication? Thank you. So my understanding and my experience is that Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which is a type of a rickettsia, is pretty easily treated with the doxycycline, meaning we tend not to see it becoming a chronic problem. And that a treatment, I believe, is 14, it's 10 to 14 days. I'd have to look that back up, but I believe the recommended treatment length is 10 to 14 days. And if you have Rocky Mountain spotted fever, that should take care of it. Okay. Realize also that if you've been treated for Lyme with antibiotics, that you may have even been on doxycycline before as part of that Lyme treatment, or minocycline, any of the tetracyclines can be useful for treating Rocky Mountain spotted fever as well too. Okay. All right. And in terms of, so your last part of that question was, and what can I do to prevent getting sicker over time once I stop the medication? I would need to know a lot more about what you're on right now, what you've tried. I would need to know a lot more questions, and so a lot more information. And so I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to answer that part for you here. Okay. All right. Hello, Greg. Hold on here just a minute. What are your thoughts on Bactrim desensitization for patients with delayed onset allergic reaction days after treatment begins? I'm allergic, but Bactrim works wonders for me. Very few doctors seem familiar with desensitization, so choice of practitioner can be extremely limited. You know, Bactrim can be a wonderful drug. It's a sulfa antibiotic, everyone, and unfortunately, quite a number of people are allergic to sulfa antibiotics. Greg, I've had patients that have had Bactrim allergies, and usually I have found other ways to get their treatment to move forward without having to use the Bactrim then. So unfortunately, I don't know. I honestly don't know how effective desensitization is for sulfa antibiotics. I haven't had to do it before because I have found ways around that. This is a time if I had to pursue this with a patient of mine, I would probably do some of my own literature search on it, but I also would probably spend some time talking to my local allergist just to get their opinions on it as well too. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to be a good source for you on this one. Okay. Good luck to you. Hello, Nancy. Let's see. Thank you for all the help you're offering to those in need. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate that. I enjoy helping people. That's one of my missions in life here, is to help as many people as I can with this nasty illness. And so thank you for that. I appreciate that. All right, everyone. That's it for me for tonight. So it's great being back here again. I actually have missed doing this over the last 6 weeks. I did enjoy my time away traveling back up. I kind of meandered through the southeastern part of the country, and even collided with a deer down near Zion National Park. And fortunately, I think we bounced off of each other. I think the deer wound up moving on, and my car did not have much damage at all. So I'm hopeful that deer is okay. But that happened outside Zion National Park down in Utah. Stunning area down there, just gorgeous. But it's good to be back. And I've enjoyed this. So tomorrow morning, somewhere around before 9:30 a.m., if I get up early and get going, I may even be really early with it too, but 9:30 a.m. Seattle time, Pacific Standard Time, look for an email that will give you information about how to see the video, okay? Also, in that email, you'll be able to click a link to sign up for next week's webinar as well too. It's been great being here tonight. And again, if you're interested in information about my reopening of the practice, again, within a couple weeks, I hope to have a website launched explaining all that. And at this point, I'm looking for mid-November. I am not ready to take appointments yet. I don't have the systems in place yet, though. Okay? All right. Good night, everyone. And good luck.